Hey everybody, my name is Eric.
My name is Tacondra, and welcome to Building with the Browns.
We are super excited to bring you fresh revelation and perspectives based on our life experiences.
Yes, we are all about laying foundational truths regarding marriage, love, faith, family, finances, and more that are built to last.
We hope you enjoy Building with the Browns. I'm letting go.
Is this
It's your song. It's not Let It Go from Frozen.
Let It Go.
No.
What are we talking about?
I'm talking about your song, Letting Go.
Oh, I'm letting go.
Yeah. To what? To all the what?
I don't even remember the words to most.
Me either. So that means y'all gotta go listen
Y'all
and
gotta go
figure out
listen
what
to
the song
it.
is. Letting Go.
By
Tacondra.
That's me. Hey, y'all. So we're not talking about letting go exactly. Right. But what we are talking about today kind of goes with letting go of the familiar.
The things you're used to.
That no longer serve you.
There you have it.
So today we're talking about fighting the familiar. And when we say fighting the familiar, that could mean fighting the familiar as in trying to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes we're finding the familiar.
Come on.
We keep finding the familiar. And instead of fighting against it, we give into it. So I'm going to let you go ahead and
Absolutely. Well, you know me, I'm always got to start with a definition. So I say, well, what does familiar mean? And just a simple definition is frequently seen or experienced. It's easily recognized, right? And so we gravitate to things that, one, we recognize or have some type of memory of it or comfortability with it or familiarity, right? Mm-hmm. And then those things that we see a lot, right? Mm-hmm. How many times have you bought a car and you don't remember seeing that car on the street, but as soon as you buy the car, now you see it all the time? Mm-hmm. It's because you're familiar with it, and now it's seen. It's marketing, it's ads, it's what you see the most, you end up gravitating to the most. And so those things that are familiar, that's just simply what it is. It's familiar. When we talk about the first three letters in that word, it's fam. What word comes to mind? Family. Mm-hmm. Because what? They're familiar. They're people that I recognize. They look like me. They sound like me. They're from where I'm from. So there's a level of trust that comes in that familiarity too. But sometimes that trust can be misleading.
Very.
Because I know some fake cousins who claim to be a part of the family, and they ain't in our family when I go and look at the books, you know what I mean? So it's a very hard thing sometimes to get away from, and it's also a hard thing to go toward, right? And so like you said, sometimes we're fighting it to get away from it, and then we're fighting it because we keep going to it.
What are some examples that we as human beings struggle with when it comes to familiarity, and even talk about maybe some things that you struggled with in the military? We can talk about this because we're currently in this season of transition, with you coming out of being in the military for 17 years. So you have familiar mindsets. Mm-hmm. You have, just different things that you're familiar with. And you realize, okay, I have to fight this familiar. I'm trying to take off this old thing and put on a new thing.
Yeah, living in a military town or community, even though we're not actively serving in the military, it's good. It feels normal for me to be around a bunch of soldiers because, like you said, we kind of think alike. You know what I mean? Everybody's, kind of the same mindset. You got people from all walks of life, but we share one thing, one common thing, which is the Army. And if you're in the Air Force or you're in the Navy or whatever, some of this is not familiar to you because it's more Army oriented. And so each branch has their own kind of vibe, their own environment. So being here where we are, it's what we know. We always say it's kind of what we know. And any town we go in, if there's a Army military base around, we feel connected to it in some shape or fashion. I know I do. But it's comfortable. It's comfortable. And so, being out, and as long as I've been out now, I don't always want to be associated with soldiers.
We don't always want to remain comfortable.
Right.
And that's where I want you to shift and pivot, is when we're fighting the familiar. Mm-hmm. we're confronting ourselves. We're confronting patterns. We're confronting different things and issues in our life that are familiar to us that we're tired of. And that's hard. It's like stepping out of the old man and putting on the new. Like, I'm tired of being in this area.
Right.
Like, I'm grateful for what the military provided for us for 17 years, but tired of the environment.
Absolutely.
Tired of the culture. Tired of the familiarity, because a lot of it was conditioned. A lot of it was you just get thrown into a culture and that becomes your new norm.
Right.
And then when you get out, you like, whoa, you in the real world. It's like you're trying to take on something new. And it's like, wait a minute, was I bamboozled all
Right.
this time? Or you could just be like, no, I'm going to just go back to what feels good. And we already know, especially as believers or unbeliever, whatever, when you are tired of being sick and tired and you want to move forward, the enemy's going to always fight you.
Yeah.
He's going to fight you with familiarity to pull you back into a mindset, to pull you back into old ways, old habits, to pull you back to the same people, places, and things that no longer serve you for where you're going. Not for where you've been, but for where you're going.
No, that's good.
And so that's where that fighting with the familiar. It's just too easy for me to go back to being a military spouse. That whole mindset,
Even knowing the heartache that comes with it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Paint that picture. What you mean?
So like going back into that military mindset or that environment, actively serving, heightens or elevates the possibility of me being gone and you having to be a stay-at-home spouse and to hold the household down while I'm abroad doing training and traveling and doing all these different things. And so even though you know that, right, you'll find other things that are beneficial or that can be beneficial to you, like making sure you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. The 1st and the 15th becomes the holiday for you again, because no matter what, I'm gonna get a check, right? And so that's a place of comfort and familiarity to where you'll say, well, even though he's gone, at least financially I'm taken care of.
I feel like I'm secure because of this.
Yes.
But in the transition, when I want a new thing,
right,
but I'm having trouble letting go of the old thing, I begin to settle and say, well, I guess I'll just settle for you being gone. When the truth is, I don't want you gone. I want you here with me. I want another life. I want another culture. I want a new way. But it's that fight.
Yeah.
And that's what familiarity does. It'll cause you to settle.
Right. And that's why I honestly believe that when you're in a place for too long, you not only get comfortable, but you get complacent.
Very much so.
And in complacency, it draws down your ability to make sound decisions.
Not only does it draw down your ability to make sound decisions, it diminishes your ability to have faith that there is something better.
Yep.
Moving forward that's greater than what's behind you. And so how many of you listening can relate to falling for the familiar versus falling forward in faith, believing that God has something greater?
Right.
If you just keep moving forward into your future.
Yeah.
Into your future. And sometimes that means dealing with uncertainty. Sometimes that means not knowing what the next step is going to look like.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means I don't know what I don't know, but I know who. I don't need to know how, but I know who.
Right.
And as long as God has me in his hand, just like he has the world in his hand, I don't have to worry about falling, period.
Right.
Just falling.
Yeah.
I'd rather fall moving forward than fall backwards into familiarity. And that's where I stand right now. Like, Lord, if I'm going to fall,
let me fall forward.
Let me fall forward.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of falling backwards. How many of you can relate?
Yeah.
I'm tired of falling for the familiar. Falling for the same people that mean me no good, right? It's like a dog returning to its vomit, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And so this is some of the things that we're dealing with in the transitional space that we're in right now, being that we are a military family, paramilitary family, have done it for so many years. And when you're transitioning, it's like when your eyes are open, it's like there's a lot of unconditioning that has to happen. And naturally, like I said, your body is like, no, that's familiar. That's comfort. That's comfortable. So I'm going to stick with it. But something inside of me is like, I'm uncomfortable with this comfortable stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whatever the words is I'm trying to use. I'm uncomfortable with my comfortability. And I don't want this anymore. I want something new. And I guess, the whole purpose of this podcast is to encourage people not to go back.
Don't go back when God's telling you to go forward.
And not only that, but check your appetite. Check your desires. You're greedy for what's behind you. I told my husband I didn't want to preach on this podcast, but I can't help it. Okay. Yeah. Like the children of Egypt. Children of Egypt. That's what they were.
They were the children of Egypt.
They were the children of Egypt, not the children of Israel. The children of Israel. God, I was trying not to preach, babe, but I can't help it.
It's going, because it's been on our hearts.
It's going. Y'all gonna have to hear this message at some point. But in Numbers chapter 11, verses 4, it talks about how not even the children of Israel, it says the misfits among them had a craving for what was familiar. This is when, they were talking about eating the manna.
Yeah.
And they got tired of the manna and they began to crave what they had in Egypt, the familiarity. They began to crave the leeks and the onions and the cucumbers and the melons and all this. And they like, we were better off in Egypt. But all the while, God was moving them into their promised land. After all, the children of Israel were a chosen generation.
Right.
But it was the misfits among them that convinced them, had the people of Israel whining and complaining, why can't we have meat like we had when we were in Egypt?
Come on. And so that goes back to the point that I made, that they wanted to go back to a place that did them the worst.
Yes.
They wanted to actually say, you know what, I'll trade this wilderness for slavery. At least we was eating good. How crazy does that sound? I'll trade my freedom of not having to be deployed and not be training and not be stuck on somebody else's timeline just to be comfortable, just to get a benefit.
I go back to Egypt. Just to die.
Come on. I preach the message, crave to your
Don't
grave.
let your crave become your grave.
Exactly. And so the thing you crave the most is the thing that's probably going to kill you.
If you don't check it. Check your cravings. And
that's all God was trying to do. He was trying to say, you know what? The way you was provided for while you were in slavery is not what I had in mind for you. And he says, let me be your provider.
The same thing that they had and that they were building in Egypt, God had already prepared for them in the promised land. The same thing that they were building for Pharaoh, a master in Egypt, God had already prepared for them in the promised land. And all they had to do was keep moving forward.
That's it.
In faith, have the strength, be obedient, stop whining and complaining, quit going back.
Yeah.
Move forward. So I don't know what familiarity looks like in your life right now. I don't know what it is that you're faced with, what you're fighting against. If you're in the middle of a transition or a transformational process and you just feel like going back to what's familiar, we want to encourage you today. Don't fall for the familiar, because that's the enemy's number one tactic. One of them anyway, because he has many. He will always use what's familiar. And we could go deep and talk about familiar spirits. Okay, that's on a whole nother level. When people come around you with a familiar spirit, anything that looks like something that once felt good to you, but it wasn't good for you, he's going to use that to pull you back.
It's something that we nowadays, that's in the lingo that we say, is red flags. Red flags are your familiars. Those things that pop up and to tell you stop, and you look at them and you're like, I can deal with the red flags. I've been through this before, or I dealt with that. No, them red flags are telling you, don't come. Don't do it. And when you see them, it's usually very early.
Yeah.
It's not after you've made a decision. No, it's very early. Like there's something in you that'll be like, nah, you know what? I shouldn't be doing this. But again, fighting that comfortability is probably the hardest thing, because nobody wants to be uncomfortable. No, nobody.
And that was that uncertainty.
Yeah, but that was the children of Israel's problem. 40 years in the wilderness, they were uncomfortable in a wilderness because it was a place they had never been in.
It was a place they had never been in. But while they were in it, what they failed to realize was God had taken them out of Egypt, a place, but he had to get the Egypt out of them. And that's what we fight. And that's in that transitional space. It's in the middle. It's always in the middle when you're transitioning from point A to point B, one space to another. You're in between.
Right.
And it's the in between where God is saying, well, I got you. I brought you out of point A. You're not quite to point B. You're going in that direction, but you're in the middle.
Right.
And they were fighting God taking the Egypt, the mindsets, the habits, these different issues in their hearts and in their minds that kept them in Egypt. He had to take the Egypt out of them. So don't get frustrated and fall back to familiarity, because God is trying to take what was familiar outside of you in the middle.
Yeah.
The middle is a hard place to be in.
It is.
Maybe that's another podcast we'll talk about, being in transition. Oh, you already got a song for that one?
Yeah, it's a song for that one too.
Anyway. Yeah, we did not have a song for this whole familiar thing. Somebody tell us what a song is, because there has to be one out there. But my God, I tell you, fight the familiar by not going backwards.
Right.
Fall forward and have faith that what God has for you,
it's for you.
Not only is it for you, but it's greater than what's behind you.
Absolutely.
It's greater, whether it be friends, finances,
food,
opportunities, food. I don't want no Egypt food.
Listen,
no
this is something that I practice. When we go places, what do I always do?
He always orders something new. And I always get my familiar. But your girl's smart. Let me tell you, this is how you be smart. I eat off his plate.
Yeah.
Okay, I stick with my familiar plate, but I'm going to eat off yours. And the next time I come, I'm ordering that dish if I like it. So y'all be like him. Be like Eric over here, Pastor Eric.
Small beginnings, small steps.
Take that leap of faith and try something new. And that's what I guess I want to encourage someone and challenge whoever is listening to this podcast on today. Try something new. Step outside of your box that you've put yourself in and do something different. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. No, boo, you are hanging out with familiarity and you're frustrated because you keep falling for the okie doke. You keep falling for it. So do something different.
Yeah.
Trick your mind, trick your heart, whatever it is, trick yourself into doing something that you're not familiar with. It's uncomfortable, but guess what? We aren't called to thrive in our comfort zone. Everything that God does, because he does things big.
Right.
I'm going to let you talk about the whole manna thing and how he provided the children of Israel manna in the wilderness. And what did manna mean?
Manna simply means, what is it?
Something they'd never seen before.
Yeah, they couldn't even define it because they'd never seen it, because it came from God.
Yeah. What is it?
What is it?
If you ain't experiencing some what is it type stuff in your life,
come on,
you are not getting a taste of the Lord.
Yep.
What is this? That's what was wrong. They was like, man, what is this? No, it should have been like, what? Manna? What is this?
Yeah.
They wanted what was familiar.
If God would have gave them the bread that they asked for, they wouldn't have appreciated it. They wouldn't have had to work for it. It would have already been complete.
Yep.
But what he did was he gave them manna, and they had to do one or two things. They had to either boil it or they had to bake it.
They had to boil it and bake it, yeah.
Right? And so there was a process behind what God gives you. He's never going to give you the complete thing, finished product. We always want the finished product. Lord, I'm praying for $1 million. No, he's going to give you access to the $1 million. You got to reach out and grab it and do the things to get it.
He gonna give you an idea, or a strategy,
right?
And you have to apply your faith and put in the work. And so that's what fighting the familiar looks like. It's grabbing hold of, what is this? God, what is this?
Yeah.
Well, it's what he's put in your hand, right?
Absolutely.
What is he putting in your hand? Use what you got. Start where you are. Do what you can.
That's it.
Bake some bread with that manna.
Yep.
Hello. And keep moving forward into your promised land. I sure hate that we had to turn this into a whole little sermon, because it was supposed to just be about the military. We can't help what's in us gonna come out of us, okay?
Absolutely.
We cannot help that. And I don't feel shame or anything, regret anything about that. But hopefully you guys got some type of encouragement. Hopefully the Lord spoke a word to you in spite of what we didn't say. You heard what the Lord had for you to hear in this podcast. So again, fight the familiar by falling forward.
That's it.
In faith, believing that God, you know what you have for me ahead of me is way greater than what's behind me. And keep moving and be human in that. Allow yourself to experience the emotions of letting go. letting go hurts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just be real. It hurts.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to put on the old man.
Right.
Renewing your mind hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Letting go of old mindsets hurts. But guess what? You got to choose your hurt. I say it all the time. It takes pain to get rid of pain. So choose your hurt. Either you're going to choose the hurt of going back to what's familiar, or you're going to choose the hurt of moving forward.
Right.
And what's ahead of you in your future. So
that's good.
That's it, you guys. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to speaking with you again on the next episode of Building with the Browns.
We are